I'm Jason Wright, and this is the Texas Titans Podcast. Just like the name of the podcast suggests, I will be visiting with Texas Titans of business, academia, sports, or whatever their chosen field, looking for the disciplines and habits that have made these Texans so remarkable. Success leaves clues, and I want to crack the code to these Titans' success and share it with you. Thank you for joining me here on the Texas Titans Podcast. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Texas Titans Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Office Pride. If you have a commercial business, a commercial office, physician's office, insurance office, real estate office, I don't care what kind of office you have, it gets dirty throughout the course of business. And guess what? If you're a physician, you need to be taking care of your patients. If you're an insurance agent, you need to be writing insurance policies. If you're a real estate agent or a real estate broker, you need to be selling houses or selling or writing leases or doing anything other than cleaning your office space. That's why you need Office Pride. My friend David Stein is the East Texas developer for Office Pride, and he is also one of the top franchisees in the entire Office Pride family of franchises. And he's right here in East Texas, and I cannot more highly recommend both David as a leader and Office Pride, the company that he runs right here in East Texas. Give him a call at 903-534-0425, 903-534-0425, or just go to officepride.com. If you're outside the East Texas area, there's probably an Office Pride near you. Check them out. And when you do so, please, please, please mention that you heard about them on the Texas Titans Podcast. David is David Stein, our local East Texas developer. Not only is a good friend, but he is a Texas Titan, a great entrepreneur, a great friend. And I can tell you, he runs his business with the utmost of integrity. They do a great job. He makes sure that they do the job they say they're going to do, when they're going to do it. And if something goes wrong, because, hey, that's business, he's going to take care of it. So you can always depend on Office Pride. So please, 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 please call Office Pride for all your commercial cleaning needs. Now, let's get to today's guest, Chris Wallace. Chris Wallace is the president and CEO of the North Texas Commission. I am not talking about Chris Wallace from Fox News Sunday. I'm talking about our very own homegrown Texas Lone Star State certified Chris Wallace. He is the president and CEO of the North Texas Commission, and the North Texas Commission is an organization that exists to make sure that the economic engine of North Texas continues to hum along. If there's anything that people are saying about Texas is that it is open for business. It has one of the lower regulatory environments of the country. It is a place where on average 1,200 people a day are moving to the Lone Star State. The North Texas Commission exists to put chambers of commerce, business owners, local municipalities all together to strategize and make sure that everyone's at the table coming up with strategies and actionable items to make sure that the economic engine continues to hum along, particularly in the North Texas region. Now, I'm going to give you the professional bio of Chris Wallace. Chris Wallace is the president and CEO of the North Texas Commission, a unique public-private partnership that drives large, impactful projects and legislative advocacy benefiting a robust 13-county region. Prior to joining the NTC, Wallace was president and COO of the Texas Association of Business, the state chamber of commerce. In this role, he managed TAB's statewide team responsible for legislative advocacy and strategy, operations, membership, and marketing, as well as board and chamber relations. As a registered lobbyist, Chris led TAB's advocacy initiatives in the areas of economic development, having founded the highly recognized and successful Keep Texas Open for Business Coalition. Wallace also successfully led a nationwide campaign authorizing the Export-Import Bank, as well as a NAFTA 2.0 initiative, Texas-Mexico Trade Coalition. Prior to joining the TAB team, Wallace was president and CEO of the Greater Irving Las Colinas Chamber, the third largest chamber of commerce in North Texas and the first national 5-star accredited chamber in Texas. He also managed the Irving Economic Development Partnership. Wallace is chairman of the National Board of Trustees of the U.S. Chambers Institute for Organization Management, as well as a former regent of Northeast Institute at Villanova University. He is among only 570 executives in the nation who have earned their CCE, which stands for Certified Chamber Executive designation. He also serves on the National Board of the Business and Industry Political Action Committee and on the Texas Advisory Committee for the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition. Wallace has also served as the Vice President of Administration for the Las Colinas Association, where he successfully developed and implemented a corporate communications and marketing program for the 12,000-acre Las Colinas development. He is a 1992 graduate of Texas Tech University, Reckham, and serves as a member of the Texas Tech Chancellor's Council and previously on the Professional Advisory Board of the College of Media and Communication, where he was named an outstanding alumnus in 2008. Wallace has experience in economic development, marketing, strategic planning, and public relations, including management in both the public and private sectors. He has played an active role in several local and state political campaigns. Wallace is an advocate of strong civic engagement through his involvement with numerous social services, education, arts, and municipal related boards and commissions. He was a finalist for a 2010 White House Fellowship. Whew, that's a lot. And let me tell you something. Besides all that, Chris is just a terribly, terribly nice guy, a good guy, and he and I have developed a friendship that I am very thankful for. And so, therefore, I cannot wait to introduce you, the Texas Titan audience, to my friend, a great leader, not only just in North Texas, but for the Lone Star State as a whole, my friend, Chris Wallace. Thanks. Well, welcome to another episode, as it were, of the Texas Titans podcast. I'm here with Chris Wallace, the president and CEO of the North Texas Commission. Chris, how are you?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I appreciate the time, man. This is something that you and I have been wanting to put this conversation together for a while.
Yes.
So you're about a year into your new role.
Correct.
And so here's what I want to cover today, kind of like we talked about offline. I just want to talk about, one, you as a leader, because, and I got to tell you this is you're very highly thought of, because every corner I go to in the state, those folks, first of all, nearly everyone knows who Chris Wallace is, and everyone has such a
Fox News anchor.
Well, no, not that one. Our Chris Wallace, the Texas Titan Chris Wallace. They know who you are, and everyone universally speaks very highly of you for your work with the legislature, your work for Texas business. And so what I want to talk about today is, one, your role. You are a C-level executive, and so I want to talk about your background and kind of the path that got you to that point. And the thing about the Texas Titans podcast that I want to do is I want to always use it to add value to the listener, because a lot of these folks are either in their careers and they're either moving into that executive role for the first time. They're young, aspiring entrepreneurs or business leaders that want to be in that leadership role. Yeah. You followed that path. So let's talk about that. But then I also want folks to know about the North Texas Commission. And then let's just use this as an opportunity to talk about what's going on in the Lone Star State. Because if anyone has their finger on the pulse of the Lone Star State, that's kind of your role. So let's just get started with Chris Wallace, our Lone Star Texas Titan, Chris Wallace. Where are you from? And kind of take us through kind of your education and through your career and how you ended up doing what you're doing now.
You bet. No, thank you for this opportunity. So I was born and raised up near Wichita Falls in a little town, Bowie, Texas, named after James or Jim Bowie.
Yep.
My dad, my parents came here from Mississippi many, many years ago. For my dad, a football scholarship, and went to school and graduated from Trinity University in San Antonio. My mom came later and did the same. And they worked all over. My dad was with Continental IMSCO, worked out in East Texas, in Winsboro.
Oh, yeah, that's close to where I'm from. I'm from Sulphur Springs, so that's my neck of the woods, man.
Right there.
Was just through Winsboro yesterday, as a matter of fact.
It's a beautiful area through there. My dad later had the opportunity to open up his own business in Bowie. It's an oil field supply store. It's been very successful for just over 50 years.
Wow.
and very successful business owner in Montague County, and they serve Montague and Wise and Jack counties all up through north central Texas. And my mom was a realtor for many, many years. I think about 16 years.
Okay.
And she lives in Denton, and that's where I really call home, because that's where I went to elementary school, middle school, high school, when there was one high school, Denton High School. And when it came time for me to go to college, I'm the youngest of four. I have brothers who went to Texas Tech, a big Texas Tech family with nieces and nephews and sister-in-laws and what have you, graduates of Tech. And my parents, of course, from Trinity. So it was either you go to Trinity, you go to Texas Tech.
Right.
So I chose Texas Tech. I'm glad I did. I was very engaged on campus there in student government, several student organizations. And that's where I really learned to appreciate what leadership is all about. And I taught actually leadership classes for the Dean of Students office there, working on a master's, and worked at the university before I was offered a job at the United Way and served the United Way of Lubbock, 21 human service agencies under the umbrella of the United Way, or funded by the United Way. And that was a wonderful, great experience that I think fondly of often. And a lot of lifelong friends. I still love to go back to Lubbock to visit friends there at my old church and what have you. So, long story short, I worked on several civic organizations and political campaigns. And the mayor at that time, David Langston, asked me to consider heading up a group called Broadway Festivals, which was a coalition with the Downtown Committee of Churches. The Chamber was involved, the Convention Visitors Bureau was involved, and they funded this organization to draw attention and focus on redevelopment, and primarily through events in the downtown area. So they produced a very large Fourth on Broadway festival. They still have it today. I think it's probably as large as it was then, but it served all of that South Plains area.
Okay.
We later added a Lights on Broadway in conjunction with the Carol Lights, a great event with Texas Tech, typically the first Friday of December to kick off the Christmas season.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I had the honor of developing the Buddy Holly, what then was the Buddy Holly Music Festival.
Oh, wow.
And working with Maria Elena Holly and really spotlighting the significance of Buddy Holly being born there in Lubbock. And later, I think it became the West Texas Music Festival to not only focus on Buddy Holly, but other West Texas musicians who got their start in the Lubbock and the surrounding West Texas area. And so when an opportunity came for me to move back home, I took it. And came back home and worked for a while with the city of Irving as their business liaison. And then I was asked to come out to the Las Colinas Association in North Irving. And I began to build a community relations and marketing program for the 12,000 acres of Las Colinas, and later became the co-CEO or vice president was a title at that time. We had a chairman of the board who was really, in fact, the CEO, Heinz Simon, who did a great service and a wonderful leader for Las Colinas and for Irving, and really built on what the legacy was that Ben Carpenter left. And I had actually opportunity for a few years to get to know Mr. Carpenter, and Heinz and I would interview him, very similar to this right here, to capture a lot of the history and the archives of the Carpenter family and their ranch land and why they left that legacy in what is now one of the premier master plan communities of the entire country, world perhaps. So I was on the board of the Irving Chamber through when I was serving at the Las Colinas Association. And when James Briggs, longtime executive director or CEO there, decided he was going to, his second retirement, he was with GTE, now Verizon.
Yep.
It was when GTE had their world headquarters in Las Colinas and Irving. And they asked me to apply when James decided he was going to retire. So I did. National search, and I was very fortunate and blessed enough to become the president and CEO of the Irving Chamber. And I did that for 10 years. And While I was there, we were so fortunate. We had a great partnership with the city and ran all the economic development on behalf of the city. And we became the first five-star accredited chamber through the U.S. Chambers accreditation program, which is very rigorous. Became the first five-star chamber in the state.
Wow.
I never forget when they called and said, congratulations, you made it through the accreditation, the online version. We had a lot of written information. They hired independent consultants all around the country to kind of grade the applications on the on-site visit. We knew we would be accredited, but we were pleasantly surprised that we were accredited with 5 stars, which is the highest accreditation for the first time. Usually it takes you several times to get to 5 stars. But we were very politically active and lobbying in Austin and in D.C., and that helped put us over the goal line with 5 stars. So I was very proud of that accomplishment.
Sure.
So when TAB came calling, the Texas Association of Business, that they were looking for a new president and COO, they were going to divide up the 2 top leader positions there, a CEO and a president. I was happy that they chose me to take over that position. So I enjoyed my almost 5 years, so 4.5 years or so in Austin, but I'm really glad to be home.
Yeah.
My parents are aging, and I wanted to come home first and foremost to be close to them and provide care for them, which I have enjoyed doing today. And continue to enjoy spending a lot of time with them. I'm very close to my family, and I love this position.
Yeah.
And when I heard this was opening, and I talked to a few of the board members, and they said, with their new focus on advocacy, because of some of the challenges that the business community faced and the local cities and counties faced in the last session, and this was then the 85th session, they wanted to become more engaged in advocacy for the 86th session that we just finished. And so that we did. So it was a year ago now, and I've spent a lot of time in Austin, obviously, since January, so it's good to be back in the region now full-time. And look forward to getting re-engaged in this 13-county region. It's a vibrant, robust economy that we have here in North Texas.
Well, and that's one of the things I want to get to eventually, because I think a lot of people, they don't really know how it works, where you have the different advocacy groups. And you mentioned something there, lobbying. It's so often that we hear lobby used as almost a 4-letter word, and which in fact it's not always.
Not
so
at all.
I want you to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But let's go back to, so your dad's been an entrepreneur and in business for himself for 50 years. And was he a guy that, and what I see as a theme throughout your career is an understanding and an appreciation for the private sector, but also it's very apparent you have a heart for service, and combining those two, I think you've done that, masterfully well. So was your dad a chamber guy? Was he involved in
Yeah, he was. In his heyday, he was very engaged, civically, chaired Rotary, and we just had a conversation not too long ago that he was, remembering raising dollars and funds for auction items for the Rotary Golf Tournament. Which was a big deal, and raised a lot of money for the Rotary Club there in Bowie. But yes, very civically engaged. The company still today is very generous to nonprofits in Bowie and really across that entire region. My second oldest brother runs the business today. We're very thankful for the legacy that my dad left. But my dad and my granddad, my mom's father, and really my grandmother on my dad's side, as well as my mom, really those 4 taught me that, and this is what I kind of strive for every day, and as a leader, is to be a trusted advisor, a compassionate confidant, a respected liberator, and advocate for fairness for all, and do that with grace and love while I walk humbly with my God. And that's what I strive for every day. I'm not perfect at it by all means. I strive to be perfect at it every day. I'm a perfectionist, but I do my best. But I'm a huge fan of civic engagement. And you mentioned on the lobby, it's really about engaging our business and civic leaders in the advocacy process. That's what we're all about. We have to do a better job, and we're getting there, of making sure that the business voice and the local freedom or local control voice is very much heard in Austin and in Washington, D.C.
And help the listener understand, because again, there's so many folks that, like I used to, as you know, like your mom, I came up as a real estate broker, and actually my first real involvement in politics was with the Texas Association of Realtors. I was just a grassroots leader, and I was climbing the ladder there. And I used to tell people, that TAR is basically the only real lobby for the private property owner. And what that meant was we were constantly fighting for private property rights, so that you wouldn't have local municipalities or HOAs putting erroneous mandates in place that would infringe on your private property rights. And most people don't understand that the business climate that we enjoy in Texas, while we do have a very independent, free market spirit in Texas, it's always just one breath away from getting stifled, but for some of the advocacy partners that are out there, like the North Texas Commission. So kind of talk to us about some of the major issues that our state is facing that you've had to tackle as an advocate for the business community.
Yeah, you bet. We worked very hard this session and last session too to make sure that just to give you a couple examples. One, make sure our economic development incentive tools don't go away, and that if we keep them, that they're funded. So when we work very hard to move a business, the jobs for fellow North Texans to the region, we want to make sure that our local municipalities and the state, when they match these funds, have the tools to be able to recruit and to incentivize businesses to, and this is a contractual relationship that could be easily clawed back by the state, to incentivize, to build operations, to develop jobs here that are mid to high level paying jobs oftentimes. So it's very much important, obviously, that we have those tools. But that's not a given. So we have to fight for those, it seems like, every session.
Right.
We have to make sure that our state is open to all people. We had the bathroom bill in the 85th session. We were on the front line at TEB fighting against that because we wanted to make sure that we had a state, an environment that is open and conducive to business. And we know that a lot of businesses want to be in a state that is open to business, and for the sake of recruiting top talent and a future workforce. Excuse me. One of the biggest challenges that we face, well, let me just tell you the top three challenges of our region today. And there's obviously some things legislative-wise that we can do to help on those three challenges. One is workforce development. Our workforce pipeline, how we are working to connect our ISDs with our 2-year and 4-year colleges, and making sure that there is a pipeline there into the workforce and what the needs are of business. Right. And that is by far the biggest challenge of our state today and our region is, are we building a pipeline of high-skilled workers that are ready to go for business in 3 to 5 years? And I think what the legislature did this past session, and I congratulate them on setting a priority at the very beginning, and that was HB 3 with school finance reform. And they set that as a goal, the governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker, and they worked very closely, tight-knit with both chambers of their colleagues, and they accomplished that goal. First time in the state's history that that's been accomplished without a court order. Right. So my hat's off to them for, it's certainly not perfect, but it goes a long way in beginning to fix school finance reform. So tackling our number one issue of our state and our region, workforce pipeline. Second is infrastructure. We didn't see a whole lot on infrastructure, transportation, water infrastructure as well this session, like we saw a couple sessions ago. But I think we will hopefully next session. We have to. We have a population in North Texas of 7.5 million. We're going to double by far by the year 2050. Wow. Maybe a little sooner than that. So we have to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place But we saw 21 bills. I think it was 21 bills filed to literally stop or derail the high-speed rail project that is going to connect between Houston and DFW. Over 10 counties, permanent jobs, huge economic impact, almost as much economic impact as DFW, $37 billion on an annual basis provides. It's a huge economic generator, economic engine for our region. That's how we were founded here at the Commission, was develop and market DFW Airport. So, we worked very hard to make sure that those bills died. And luckily they all did. So that project is advancing today. But transportation infrastructure is our number 2 issue. Number 3 is housing attainability. Do we have the housing stock and affordable housing for workers, our policemen, nursing, teachers, to live close to where they work? I was just out recently in Allen Fairview visiting with the new Fairview mayor and the Allen mayor, Mayor Terrell, and that's becoming a bigger issue there as well. We know it's an issue in Dallas and Fort Worth and Plano and McKinney, other high-growth areas. But people are having to drive a long way to go to their job, and then they're using transportation systems, and that first mile, last mile is always the key, which us and COG and other partners are working on hard today. So those are the 3 top challenges for our region today.
Well, okay, and you mentioned some things there that I think now to get on the philosophical side of leadership. So when you're having to interact like you do so often with the business community as well as the lawmakers, and there's not an ideological, bent involved in that. You're representing the business community or the economic drivers of the region. So what is your strategy to make sure you're able to maintain relationships with, both sides of the aisle? Kevin Eltife, who was on the program a while back, that's one of the questions that I asked him, because even as a Republican legislator, he was highly respected by the other side of the aisle, and he brought a lot of people together, and so I asked him on his philosophy, and in the role you're in, I got to believe you have to have a sensibility and some tactics that you use to make sure that while you may you're going in to a legislator who has a complete, is going to be in opposition philosophically of what you're bringing to them. What has been your strategy as a leader to make sure those doors remain open so that you're at least heard?
Yeah. Well, look, we're not always going to agree, but we're going to come to the table and sit at the table together and discuss the issues and agree to disagree. But that doesn't mean we can't work together and we collaborate, because there's something that we're going to agree on. And most of our 50 state legislators that represent our 13 counties in North Texas, mixed of R's and D's, we have a great relationship with, and they do work across the aisle, and they do communicate. But that's what we're here for, is to make sure that there's that constant communication, making sure that the private sector and the public sector voice is heard. So we are, at the Commission, we're about 60% private sector. Primarily the larger employers, the mid-sized employers, and a few small employers as well, who particularly cater to the larger employers. About 60% private and 40% public. Right. So public meaning our 13 counties, many cities within those 13 counties, and our 2-year community college districts, and our 4-year public and private universities. Okay. So what we're known for, a long history, and what we are doing today is we bring those public and private sector leaders together to really address and begin to solve our region's toughest challenges, such as the 3 that I mentioned before. Right. And how we do that is obviously advocating our priorities, our top 10 priorities across the region. Right. In Austin and in D.C.
Right. Now, what is your strategy? Because a lot of, again, throughout your career, you can see that a lot of your work has been involved with having to motivate, not only be a leader of a paid staff, if you will, that you have some levers you can pull whenever folks, that's their vocation, but you're also having to depend on a lot of volunteers, a lot of recruitment for just for folks to get buy-in into the idea. as a leader, what has been your strategy all the way back from those days at Tech to where you are now? To let's say that there's a chamber that has not become a member of the North Texas Commission, or there's a business leader that you know very well a lot of the things that are being worked on by the commission would impact that business. What do you do to get those folks engaged and try to pull them in? What is, is it communication? Is it the belly to belly time? Is this visiting? What is your strategy?
Really communication is the key. Show them the importance of collaboration. We thrive on 3 pillars of service here at the Commission. One is our unique ability to convene the public and private sectors together to solve the region's toughest challenges. The second is we're subject matter experts on various issues, whether it be economic impact analysis or data collection. We have a lot of profile data on North Texas, and we are a collector and a developer of data from various sources all across the country and region and state. And we run our own leadership program, and a couple of them targeted to C-level executives, management, those who graduated from local leadership programs, to young professionals. And we're building a pipeline for those folks to hopefully run for public office who understand the importance of business and understand the importance of local control. And then the third is advocacy and boots on the ground and business voices on the ground. And one thing we did that was very successful this session is we built 2 coalitions, and where we're having collective voices at the table. One is our chambers of commerce. There are 93 chambers of commerce across our 13 counties. 9 of them have formal lobby or government relations functions. They are busy with in Austin and or DC advocating on behalf of their members and who they serve. So we worked closely with those 9, and we divided up our top 10 issues of our region between us and the 9 chambers. And it was, developing white papers. It was testifying, getting business leaders and civic leaders to go down and testify on issues. It was speaking with one big megaphone and a unified voice for North Texas. Right. Hasn't happened before, and we're very happy that it happened this session. It went very well. Same with the cities. The cities and counties were under fire this session. This was not a local control friendly legislative session on several bills, revenue caps, which is unfortunate, and from dictating or mandating building materials and what you can and cannot do. There was an effort that you couldn't spend public money on lobbying, which probably wouldn't be, could hold up in court, but still you had to fight that, right? And to make sure that particularly our rural areas have their voices heard, and we have many of those throughout our entire 13-county region. So, we want to make sure that we are collaborating and we're bringing various voices to the table, and that's what we do very well here, and making sure that we convene both public and private sectors.
Chris, because you deal with so many of the, how many Fortune 500 companies do we have in Dallas or North Texas now?
Just as of recent, there are 23.
Okay, so
one just moved their leadership out of state.
Okay.
So when Fortune comes out with their new list soon, we should be right at 20. It'd be 23,
which is, substantial to say the least. So, North Texas is becoming a global region, and so you're dealing with, some of the top business leaders.
Absolutely.
Not only just our homegrown, the list of names that everyone's heard, the Ross Perot Jr., Harlan Crow, but just
great families.
Oh yeah, we have so many here. You deal with all of them on a regular basis. Give the listener, and me for that matter, just what is a common thread you see between all of these great business leaders that have not only shaped Dallas and North Texas for Irving and all these surrounding areas, that have not only shaped the region into what it is, but continue to build it?
Absolutely.
What are some common threads you see?
Well, one, they all love the region, and they all are first to brag about the region, and they put their money where their mouth is. Not only are they bragging and talking about what we need to be doing, they're helping fund it, and they're making calls and writing letters to legislators, decision makers in Austin and in D.C. and what we need as a region, and so they are really fighting for our region.
Yeah.
And those legacy families that you named and many others still do that today, which we're very blessed and very thankful to have them in our region. Where else can you? I don't think there's anywhere in the country that you can name a region other than North Texas that has a big city like Fort Worth and Dallas, and you have 15 other cities in their midst that have a population of 100,000 or more.
Yeah.
I don't think there is one.
Yeah.
And all of those cities combined, counties combined, make our economy tick.
Right.
We are 511.7 billion in GDP, 30% of our state's GDP.
Wow.
If we were our own country, we'd be 23rd, right in between Sweden and Poland.
Right, and just so the listener understands, that is the North
Huge.
Texas region.
Region
We're not talking
only.
about Texas. We're just talking about the North
Texas
region.
only. That's correct.
23 in GDP. Wow.
4 million strong in terms of workforce and growing, about a 33% growth over 15 years, and projection is even grow further. We are number 4 as far as size of metropolitan areas throughout the entire country. Projections show us being number 3 after this next census, and we're working very hard to make sure that our region and, frankly, our state has a complete count for the upcoming census. It's very important. We're going to stand to gain 2 to 3 congressional seats.
Wow. All right. Well, now again, so as a leader, as a CEO, so we talked about it before we went before I pushed the red button. That I guess it was last Tuesday was a year at the North Texas Commission. So you listed kind of your 4 pillars of leadership philosophy that you're going to execute day by day. When you took over as CEO of the commission, how has that gone? And what did you do to gain buy-in from your staff? Again, as a leader, what do you do to, it's easy to come in and say, it's like we always hear about, the mission statements that get written, put on the wall, and everybody ignores. But as the leader, it's kind of your job to make sure that the vision gets executed.
You got to implement it. That's right.
So kind of take us through what these 12 months have been. And by the way, you had to do it, like you mentioned, with a legislative session so that pulls you away. How did you handle balancing kind of managing by absentee from Austin, but getting your philosophy and your buy-in whenever you came to the new role as CEO of the commission?
I've got a great board of directors. These are the powers to be all across our entire region. And they're really hands-on, particularly our executive committee, and a lot of great ideas and how to implement those ideas. And like I said before, they're willing to step up and to help put those ideas and implement them into action. I have a great team here. We're going to continue to grow our team here at the commission, but it is that constant leading with not only with high integrity, but making sure that you have that constant drive and that motivation to grow our region. We're going to, we have once again, I think, proved that this organization is relevant. We were founded, like I mentioned, to develop and market DFW Airport. We're doing everything we can today to make sure that the airport continues to be strong and providing support to the great airport team in the ownership cities of Dallas and Fort Worth. I remember when Congressman Ralph Hall, Dan Petty, who was a mentor of mine, who's a former CEO of this organization, pulled several chamber leaders together and talked about future water supply. And we're reaping the benefits of some of those discussions all these years in planning, and with the great work that the council governments and Mike Eastland and Michael Morris have done over the years in transportation planning. We're seeing those benefits on the ground today with our integrated transportation system of choice right here within our own region. And it takes all these partnerships to make the organization work, but we are once again becoming great influencers and relevant within the region and the state.
Right. All right. And so as a leader, you got to take care of you. You're the best business machine that you possess. So what are whenever you're not here on the day-to-day, what are you doing to stay focused? Everything from, are you meditating? What is your fitness routine? I mean, what do you do to take care of Chris Wallace to make sure you're a peak performer every day?
I do my best to work out on a regular basis. You have to keep your body fit and remain healthy.
Yeah.
Eat right. I don't do that. I try to.
Right.
I'm okay at it, actually. Stay close to my family.
Yeah.
It's good to be back here, physically close to my family. I have 9 nieces and nephews,
Yeah.
2 great parents, which
Yeah.
I'm very close to, 3 older brothers and their families,
Yeah.
a lot of great friends, network. And I love to travel. I love to travel and get out of my comfort zone and really put myself in unique situations and unique environments to learn how others operate and learn about the various types of people. And so I'm very religious, very spiritual, and stay very close to my God and church. And that's a combination of what keeps me going.
Yeah.
And I love my job. I always had a job and passion. It's not just a job. It's not just work, but I have a passion for what I'm doing.
Right.
And I want to leave a legacy. And
Right.
so we're gonna do that here at the commission.
Now, you mentioned that one of your mentors. How important have mentors been throughout your career? What have they meant to you? And and feel free to share examples. I mean, like I can tell you right now, one of the coolest things about me getting this crazy idea to start a podcast called Texas Titans was, one, realizing how many mentors I had developed through the years and how willing they were to help. And they're the ones who help. First of all, it's like I've told several of them, the first few, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be saying this a lot, that you're a mentor, because those are the people that I invited on my first episodes. And then they open the doors for other folks. So, I mean, I can connect the dots. I was in a meeting here not too long ago where I literally had, I guess for lack of a better expression, 4 generations of mentors that one connected me with one, connected me with the other, over a 20-plus year time horizon. And so I know it's been profound in my career. Kind of help the listener understand a couple of things. One, what mentors have meant to you, and then 2, again, if someone is about to embark on a career, they're an undergrad about to break out into the business world, or whether it's self-employment, whatever they're about to do, or they are kind of in those early stages. What do you look for in a mentor? How do you seek them out? And then what's it meant to you as a leader?
Yeah, over my life, a lot of my family members have served and still serve today as my mentors, successful business people, civically engaged, involved in their church, and served people, and did it with humility and practicing humility. And that's what I strive for. Is to do this. It's not about me. It's about the commission. It's about the region, and I'm here as a servant leader, working for a board, and it's about how we continue to grow the region, and we do that with a team approach.
Yeah,
and so that is my philosophy, and that's what I will continue to work toward every day.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because that's another common thread that's forming throughout the podcast and the guests, is that there's so much of a focus on the folks that either on the way or once they've attained a certain level of success, they have learned that the greatest return on investment comes from the giving, and that's giving of time, giving of energy, giving, and that's helped them to develop their passion for what they're doing, and as you say, take the focus off themselves. I was just interviewing an entrepreneur who's had phenomenal success in the tech space earlier this week, and that's one of the things that he said, is that being able to leverage his business success, but even before then, he was giving of time and energy when he didn't have the resources financially to give, has made such a difference. And so it sounds like that you've discovered that as well.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, all right. So now let's talk about Texas. I mean, as a whole, what as it relates to the rest of the country? I mean, obviously your focus is the 13 county region of the North Texas Commission. That's your vocation. But as you look at the landscape of the country, what do you see on the horizon for the Lone Star State, and how are we comparing nationally from, and I mean, let's talk some data points, but also just as you see it from a high level view, being always involved with the business community, what do you expect the next 5, 10, you pick, kind of the trajectory for Texas? How's it looking?
Yeah, well, we have to make sure that we're providing the workforce pipeline, as I mentioned before. Mm-hmm. Our population is continuing to grow. Obviously, infrastructure is huge.
Is it still somewhere, like I've heard 1,500 people a day, 1,200 people a day?
Yeah, we're going to double by the year 2050. Good. And just within our region, we're 7.5 million.
Yeah.
So, we people continue to move here. We have a favorable, very low regulatory climate compared to other states.
Right.
Pretty good environment climate, obviously. Particularly our area in North Texas, where we have a very diverse industry portfolio of businesses, unlike, say, Houston, for instance, which is really dependent on one or two key industries, oil and gas in particular. So, and weather too. We don't have that here. We have a lot of industries. We're very diversified, which is good. Because it keeps us stable. So we're a very stable, very diverse economy here. And so we want to keep that way. As far as a state, we want to make sure, I had a former board member at TAB that told me we need to stay in the middle of the fairway. And we have far right political beliefs and we have far left political beliefs. And if we could stay in the middle of the fairway and make sure that we're keeping an eye on the ball and keeping a environment that's conducive to business, as business is really what makes our economy tick within our state. Make sure that we are keeping a business focus. If we do that, we'll remain low regulatory, no state income tax. We have a favorable climate. We're essentially located in Central Time Zone, easy access in terms of passenger, air, freight, et cetera. So we have a lot to be thankful for here in Texas and in North Texas. And we want to make sure that we sustain that and keep it that way.
As part of your the region that the North Texas Commission advocates for, we've got a number of institutions of higher education, and one of the things that I've started looking at a lot, again, having two daughters, that one that's a sophomore at Alabama, one that's about to be a freshman in Colorado. Just the state of higher education it's just so odd from back when you and I were going through school, where there was just this understanding that a college degree meant freedom, it meant job security. Now, and it's not so much that it doesn't still mean those things to a certain degree, but in this new economy, there is so much. I mean, there's some of these folks that are in their early 20s with no degrees, but they understand digital marketing, they understand coding, they understand these different they have these different career paths that you and I, didn't even it wasn't even a thing yet. Are the employers in the region are we doing some things to make sure that the technical training, that the community colleges, or just the apprenticeships? I mean, I've seen a lot of folks that are looking, they're coming out, they're going, all right, I told Kevin Eltoff, going back to, the chairman of the University of Texas Board of Regents, I said, it seems like now, it used to be, okay, are you going to go to Tech? Are you going to go to Baylor?
Right.
Are you, but now it's like Tech, Baylor, JUCO maybe, or am I going to go to college at all? And that lane, and it's not just for the folks that, well, maybe college just wasn't an opportunity for our household. No, it's like higher income households with children. I've had some friends that, the parents make well into six figures, and they're saying, you know what? My son said he may not go to college, and that's okay. So just because there are opportunities to go and start making money and having a vocation right now, with the employers of the region right now, are you hearing more of a need and more of an acceptance for that high school graduate or community college graduate that has an actual trade that may have been kind of discriminated against once upon a time?
We are.
Yeah.
We are. It's becoming more and more popular, particularly as we need more professions within the trade industries. And a lot of the employees within those trades are going to be retiring soon.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have a shortage, and some we already do. And so, a 4-year, and we've got 4 public universities right here within our region, several private universities, all great institutions. They each have their niche. And what we're trying to do is make sure that that they are collaborating, particularly with the 2 years. Dr. Joe May with the Dallas County Community College District is our new chairman come October 1. I'm looking forward to that. And then also linking that with the ISDs, now particularly with resources from HB3. So I think we've got the right formula in place. But to answer your question, yes, we are seeing more people go directly into trades. We're seeing a handful of businesses, Bell Helicopter, Bell, and Lockheed Martin, for instance, and TI and others who are actually partnering with the ISDs and using community colleges as their network, and that they are guaranteeing jobs basically on a career path to their job that it would be certified and trained and ready when they obviously complete education. So that being said, it's those types of creative connections that we're going to have to continue to have here within our region to really meet the workforce demands.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm seeing, and this is kind of all over the state in different pockets, the whole idea of either incubators or makers, which maker synonymous with inventor. Those are popping up all around, and I think it's to satisfy this need. I mean, you just have folks coming out and they're ready to get to work, they're ready to make money, and I just find it fascinating. It's interesting to hear that it is something you're hearing, because you do deal with so many employers. And I don't want to, I'm not going to say that I'm advocating to not go to college, but at the same time, I mean, I've been faced with this. I've told, as a matter of fact, my youngest daughter, Abby, she has an entrepreneurial spirit. And so I said, okay, well, I tell you what, I said, why don't you consider, staying in Tyler and going to, either TJC or UT Tyler, and I'll help you, instead of all that money going to Boulder, Colorado,
right.
I'll help fund you a business,
Definitely.
and that seems more of an option now. And now, is the commission, are y'all involved with the ISDs? So trying to make sure that you can be a conduit, I suppose, between those students and some of these employers.
So our board actually, ironically, just changed back in February our bylaws to allow ISDs at the decision-making table.
Wow.
Which is a smart move to make sure that they are a part of the decision-making when we talk about our region's toughest challenges.
Right.
They have a lot of expertise to bring to the decisions. And,
Right.
A lot of... to go back to your previous question, a lot of our region is really dependent on the types of research entities we have here as well. A lot of those institutions for higher education, UT Southwestern, for instance, has a wonderful research program. Huge research coming out of that institution. And a lot of people are moving here from other countries, from other states, to take advantage of the industries and the types of research and opportunities that are here. And our key is we need to keep them here.
Right.
So once we educate them here, are they staying in our region to fulfill some of the jobs that we have to offer, and no different than those who were born and raised here as well.
Right, right. Okay, now going back to the personal of just you as a leader. Yeah. So what would you say what are your top 3 books that you've read? I don't care if they have to do with business or not, that you would say have been impactful, or even just one that you're like, that just really, that helped me understand something different that I didn't before.
Well, a lot of
impact.
Yeah, I like a lot of political.
Yeah.
I'm a
biography or a theory or
both. I'm kind of a political junkie. I like a lot of, in terms of campaigns, biography on both sides of the aisle.
Right.
And a lot of spiritual, and a lot of, obviously, within our industry. I read a lot, primarily in terms of how to grow investors, how to make sure we have a return on investment for those investors, how to retain.
Right.
how to prove your worth basically as an organization.
Right.
So, and I'm engaged very heavily at the national level. I'm immediate past chairman of the U.S. Chambers Institute for Organization Management. So, still serve on their faculty, and so I'm doing a lot of research when it comes to classes that I teach as well in this industry.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've got two recommendations for you because I'm the same way. I like to read books about political figures. I don't care what their ideology was. For instance, Master of the Senate. If you've never read that about LBJ, and if ever there were a Texas Titan, I don't care what you say about his politics. I mean, just a larger than life figure.
Sure.
Incredible read. It's a dense read, but Master of the Senate, and you understand how not only it gives a good insight into the character of LBJ, but it also gives an insight into his leadership style, both the good, the bad, and the ugly. It was a different time, a different era, but also very, very strategic thinker. And then another really good one is Power Broker, which is about Robert Moses, who essentially the Long Island Expressway, any major Johnson Beach, all the major infrastructure projects throughout New York State that we see today, almost the development of the skyline that is New York. Robert Moses was the guy that was a city planner that came up through the local political ranks, and an excellent read. Again, you're thinking, and whenever it was recommended, Ryan Holiday, who's a guy I read everything Ryan Holiday writes, and he has an extensive reading list. And I saw Power Broker, and it's about Robert Moses. And, what I think it's called the fall of New York or something. That is the actual subtitle. Incredible read, and watching this, and so. To the listener out there, I mean, I talk a lot about books and reading and self-education. Those are two I highly recommend that I think you would really enjoy. And then I think it was Game Changer. Was that the one that was a good recent political read that I loved, and that was about the. I think it was about the first Obama campaign and kind of how that changed everything as to how we run political campaigns, and the digitization of it, and so anyway, same way. Well,
thank you for those recommendations.
Yeah, they're great. All right. Well, the last thing that I always ask every guest, and I think that you will probably have. It's really cool too. As I interview leaders across the state. First of all, I always ask them this final question. They've all read the book, so if you haven't, it's okay. You're still in the club, because even if I can almost guarantee you, Chris, just knowing you the way I do, if you haven't read the book, you will still have an answer for this. So in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey, he has a chapter where, or it's in one of the chapters, that he talks about you're walking by a church, you hear music coming from the church, you walk in, you notice you're at a funeral, and then you walk up to the casket, you're at your funeral. When it's all said and done, you mentioned legacy. What do you want said about you, Chris Wallace, whenever this already successful trajectory of a career comes to a close? What do you want said about you?
I kind of alluded to it earlier, and I want to say it again if I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was a trusted advisor, a compassionate confidant, a respected liberator who advocated for fairness for all, and he did it with grace and love, and he walked humbly with his God. That's what I want said about me. So awesome. That's how I try to live every day.
Well, and the cool thing is I'll say the same thing to you that I've said to everyone else that has given me what they want said. You're living it, my brother. I think you're on point. Stay the course. It's a pleasure to know you. I thank you so much for taking this time. Thank you for your leadership for our great state, man. I mean, seriously.
It's fun.
There's a ton of things you could be doing. Thank you for what you're doing for the state.
Thank you. Love Texas. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, folks, that's it. That's my friend Chris Wallace. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Texas Titans podcast. Thanks, Chris. Hey, folks, one last note before we sign off. Do me a favor, please go check out Texas CASA. That's texascasa.org. A couple of episodes back, I interviewed the CEO of Texas CASA, Vicki Spriggs, who is an incredible professional and someone who has a heart for children. And CASA, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates, is one of the greatest organizations in the Lone Star State that is dedicated to helping children. In fact, Texas CASA's vision and mission is very simple. It reads, "We envision a safe and positive future for all Texas children." Their mission, the mission of Texas CASA, is to support local CASA volunteer advocacy programs and to advocate for effective public policy for children in the child protection system. Folks, whenever a child gets taken out of the home and turned over to CPS, as you can imagine, their world is rocked. And then all of a sudden, there is a slew of strangers that come into that child's life. You're talking about attorneys. You're talking about judges. You're talking about social workers. All these new faces, new people that come into the child's life at once. The court-appointed special advocate, the CASA volunteer, comes in to be that constant, comes in to be the person who deals with all these other adults, all the different scheduling for court hearings, for social work meetings, anything that might be going on. The CASA advocate is there to create a sense of normalcy and consistency for the child. It is an incredibly important role during one of the most traumatic times of these children's lives. So it's such a vital, important organization. The work they do is nothing short of remarkable. So I want to use the Texas Titans podcast to be a megaphone for organizations that I believe in first and foremost, that I think are doing great work, and that I'm moved to make sure that they prosper in any way possible. So if I can just get at least one or two of my listeners to check out CASA and become a volunteer, I will consider the Texas Titans podcast a great success. So more important than you rating this show on iTunes or giving us 5 stars or doing a review or following me on Facebook, put all that aside. Forget all that. If you did nothing else but find out about CASA and figure out how you can go help and become a CASA volunteer, then I will consider this podcast a massive, smashing success. So please go back and listen to my interview with Vicki Spriggs. You'll learn more about the leadership there because she is at the top. She is the person in charge of this fantastic organization. And then you'll also learn the great work they're doing. And then just like I said, go to texascasa.org and find out more for yourself. And then go see if you've got a local office that you can just walk in and say, "Hey, tell me about CASA. I heard about it on this podcast. I want to know more, and I want to know how I can help." Please do so. Thanks, guys.